If you enjoy the Mandela catalog or the Monument Mythos, you'll want to watch this video. Many of you know of the Mandela catalog, the series of analog horror videos detailing a world in which alternates, creatures that look very similar to their counterpart, or at least attempt to, have the general population living in terror. I'm sure it introduced some of you to the analog horror genre as well. It's easily one of the most popular analog horror series to this day, and I believe that it at least in part has inspired a lot of work that's come after it. That's where we get to today's subject, a series I've stumbled upon by TheMr called The Hartwin Archives. I truly believe that this will be the next big analog horror series, and even if I'm wrong, I think that you'll thoroughly enjoy what's presented to you. Today, I'll be covering the story so far and give somewhat of an analysis at the end. TheMr's links will be in the description and pinned comments, so please support them as none of the full vids will be shown in their entirety in this video, and you can't really get the full experience without watching them. By the way, if you happen to enjoy this, leave a like and sub as I'm going for 100k by the end of the year, even if it's impossible. Considering I don't expect this to be too big, I'd appreciate 500 likes. Without further ado, let's get into the Hartwin Archives. Currently, there are 9 episodes of the Hartwin Archives out as of the making of this video. Instead of summarizing the overall plot from my understanding, I'd rather get into each episode one by one as I said earlier. The first episode is titled, Mutant Disaster Survival. We open up with a warning signed by John F. Kennedy that states the video is only to be released in the event of a mutant disaster. We also see that the video is represented by Hartwin City Laboratories in collaboration with the CIA and US government. They then began to explain what mutants are. It's explained that they are biologically engineered human organisms created by Hartwin City Labs. Interesting. But we'll get back to that later. They then go on to explain that mutants are for the most part superior to the average human and were specifically created for the war effort. It then shows a picture of a man with his eyes blacked out as a woman cries in the background. This man will become very familiar as time goes on. Next are the steps to ensure safety. These being, lock all entrances to your home, avoid contact with anyone or anything, even yourself, turn off all electricity, and be calm. It's then at this point that we must learn how to identify a mutant by looking at a series of images. The first two are obvious, but the next one contains 2 pictures of former President Dwight Eisenhower, and they're both labeled as mutants. Odd. It then ends with an interesting picture of JFK and a mutant clearly in the Oval Office. At this point we can gather a couple things. For one, this tape is relatively old, seeing as JFK passed away in 1963. We also know that presidents and the US government as a whole have a heavy involvement with mutants and Hartwin Labs as a whole, from the president signing off the tape to the president having a picture with a mutant. The man with his eyes blacked out is likely relevant to the story at hand, but at this point we have no idea who he is. Finally, we can presume the mutants are likely at least capable of some sort of mass destruction, otherwise they wouldn't make a tape as a safety net. With that, let's move on to episode 2. The second episode is called Welcome to Hartwin Inc. We see right off the bat that the slogan of Hartwin Inc. is to protect human innocence. Behind the logo, you'll see a lot of images associated with conspiracy theories and hoaxes. The introduction then begins and they start to present a few company rules. The first is, when they ask, tell what you know. They then show a Walmart in Huffman, Alabama, likely a cover-up for one of the Hartwin Labs bases. Rule 2, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's here we're told that Hartwin Core doesn't exist and that we don't know what it is. If it's found out that it exists, report to your supervisor immediately. And under no circumstances do you say anything. Be silent. Be loyal. During the being silent and loyal portion, you can notice a face faintly appearing in the background. It's hard to tell who it's supposed to be at this point. It's finally time to find out what they do though, so let's get into that. Hartwin Core is protecting humanity from the truths of the world. Things like government cover-ups, creatures that wander the woods at night, and that strange presence that you feel watching you. Nothing can be released to the public unless it's authorized by higher authority. We then see a picture of the Hartwin logo with what seems to be a group of elites. This next portion reveals a bit more lore. On November 22, 1963, Operation Takeback was put into motion. Due to the currently unknown incident of 1950, an unnamed thing has ruled over what seems to be the US government and the Hartwin Corporation. However, this operation will change that. We then have a glimpse of the infamous JFK video as the mutant scene pictured with him in the previous episode talks about what happened. He says that they took JFK away from him and that they did it because they thought JFK was him. This may mean that he can shapeshift. We can guess at this point that this secret society who controls what the public actually hear from the government has people in powerful positions who may not exactly agree with them, or may not be exactly as they appear. This could be exactly why they took out JFK, but it's far too early to find out. With that, on to episode 3. The third episode is titled, The Founder. It's presumed that this means the founder of Hartwin Core. The first image we see is that of a wanted poster from Hartwin City. This could possibly be of a mutant as they don't exactly look human. We confirm shortly thereafter that this video is in fact about Eugene Hartwin, the founder of Hartwin Corps. It shows a picture of Hartwin as a young man in 1950. The caption above states that he had a small county and city named after him due to his scientific breakthroughs and discoveries. We then see a picture of the Hartwin City Labs Board of Executives where a specific man's face is circled. It talks about how the Board of Executives was made up of Hartwin's buddies, and the Hartwin Labs has many cures and vaccines that are still used today. Next, Hartwin's house is shown. Hartwin was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and this was his childhood home. Interestingly enough, this is the same state that the Walmart shown in the last episode was in. It cuts to a voice quoting the Bible. The image that fades in of Hartwin is that of Jesus, before it cuts to Hartwin shaking hands with an unknown man as an Illuminati symbol looms in the background. It then shows how he's been in several powerful historical societies and been many powerful historical figures. Finally, it shows an eye with his name under it, now adding the label, The Watchman, under his name. He says, "I know all," before it flashes to the image of the wanted poster again before showing a face that seems to be that of Hartwin. He speaks of his declining state and that he begins to search for something yet again. According to him, although he's God, he's still in agony. Well, Hartwin's obviously not just human. This of course brings up the question as to why he feels the need to have a corporation that quote-unquote protects human innocence, when humanity shouldn't mean much to him. There's clearly much more to his motivations than meets the eye. This is likely why he talked about searching for something. And this brings into question how Hartwin Corps got involved with the government and the war effort in the first place. Let's go to the next episode. The fourth episode is titled Home Video. We again open up with a warning like the first episode, only this time the CIA logo fades into the Hartwin Labs logo. It then shows a picture of the Smith family and states that this VHS is a storage of their bloodline from 1940 to 1950. It starts off with a video of a 5-year-old Johnny Smith playing in 1945. It then quickly shows the face we've seen on the wanted poster before showing a picture of Johnny at age 7 as his mother claims that she was tricked into signing him away to an alleged Boy Scouts camp and that she just wants to see him come home. During this time, you can see Johnny's picture zoom out as his face slowly loses its features before he's captured by what seems to be a mutant. It then shows us the pictures of Presidents Truman, Eisenhower, Johnson, Nixon, Carter, and Reagan before their faces are replaced with the wanted poster face again and a voice repeats,
"The mother hanged herself when the boy was reported dead,"
over and over. Right after this, we see JFK and Gerald Ford before it switches to a documentary by Hartwin City Labs. This documentary is titled Mrs. Earth. We begin to explore the beauty of the Earth, starting with owls. This is when it gets odd, as if it wasn't already, but I digress. The text says, "Did you know that owls?" before stating, "Neither did we. Owls are so cool," and then cuts to a group of deer walking before they all stare at the camera. It seems while they're staring that they may have the face from the wanted poster overlaid onto their own face, but I could be wrong. Admittedly, this part creeped me out a good bit. Something about the atmosphere here was extremely chilling to me. We then see a crab crawling out of a hole as text shows up on the screen. It says, "I came home at night. They didn't recognize me. They were scared of me," before repeating the phrase, "Who am I now?" on the screen several times. In the next segment, we get to learn about the Earth even more. Oh boy. It starts off relatively normally, talking about how the Earth is a beautiful gem in the endless void, before the Earth begins to change shape, morphing into a form very similar to that of an eye. The pupil of this eye is labeled as a gate. The eye of the Hartwin Labs core is shown over it before we see a view of the Earth from what seems to be the moon as a ghost-like hand reaches up from it. It cuts to a segment from Hartwin Channel 7 which says, "End of reality as we know it," before cutting quickly to the text, "End of our broadcast day." The national anthem plays normally for a bit when suddenly the video of the American flag flips and says, "Deep within our home they thrive on a different existence. We protect human innocence from many things, but this is our main priority. God bless America, but most importantly, God bless our existence." Right after that, we see some text and the symbol of Hartwin Labs. This isn't the end of this part, however. If you noticed, when the man from the wanted poster briefly appears, you get part of an Imgur link. During the national anthem portion, you'll find the other part. This full link leads to an image of a document. This document states that Hartwin Inc. and the US government ran MKUltra, Project Warpipe, and some unknown project as well. They purposefully leaked Project MKUltra in order to take eyes off of their other projects going on that are to be ended soon as well. This reveals a bit more about the connection of this world to the reality we've come to know. This also reveals more of why Hartwin Labs was created and the real motivation for the creation of the mutants. Whatever exists within our Earth is something that is more powerful than a human, so what better than inhuman creatures to defend us from them? Let's see what episode 5 reveals. Episode 5 is titled HEWG. It starts off by saying that all mutants must undergo a brainwashing operation due to the end of MKUltra and Operation Warpipe. We then see an image of the Bermuda Triangle with a circle in the middle that says HEWG Entranceway 001. We see the Watergate Hotel, aka Facility 406. If you know about US history, you'll know that this hotel is famous due to its involvement in President Nixon's impeachment, a figure that's been briefly shown in this series previously. After this, we get to see an image of the entranceway opened as an image of Hartwin's face fades in. It then cuts to a Hartwin City Forest and Campground guide. We see a slow video of someone driving through the woods before we see a screen that says, "Protect yourself," while showing a picture of a firearm. The same sequence happens again and it shows a bat along with the firearm. When it cuts back to the driving footage again, it shows a head slowly lowering down before the scene changes. This next scene has a censored picture with the caption, "You can't hide, even when you're dead." Next, Nixon's impeachment speech plays before it cuts to an interesting face with the text, "Oh no, I've been set free. Did you know that the afterlife is beautiful? Join them. It's better up there. You aren't loved anymore. Do it." The face of what appears to be JFK fades in before the screen cuts to black and switches to what seems to be the censored image of someone. This could be the mother that was referenced earlier. We can gather that the person that was set free probably came out of the aforementioned entranceway in the ocean. Of course, the location of the gate also explains the conspiracy around the Bermuda Triangle and why so many ships and such disappeared. The only real question right now is, where exactly does this entrance go? Let's see if we can find out. Episode 6 is called War Pipe. Of course, this is named after one of the operations that Hartwin Labs performed along with the US government. It begins with footage of a man bringing the breaking news that JFK was assassinated in Dallas. This cuts to a picture of JFK's face smiling before switching to a presentation that was given to all staff participating in Project War Pipe. The beginning of the presentation explains that the best course of action to mutate subjects is to drop them into the Watergate that connects us to Hollow Earth, which is likely the spot in the Bermuda Triangle that we noticed earlier. They should only be down there for 2 minutes, and the gate can't be opened for too long or the hollows will get out into our reality. It then shows a distorted image of Hartwin. They then continue the briefing by saying that any failed experiments must be given a powerful version of LSD and released into the wild. If anyone finds them or their children, it's to be covered up as a hoax. During this segment, we see both Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, which of course are two prominent cryptids. We then begin to hear a message from the executives. This message states that Christianity isn't real, and that in fact Mr. Hartwin took baby Jesus' body and used him to create a cult based on ideas he wanted to spread concerning his own origin. People misinterpreted it, however, and that's how the religion was birthed. We then get a message from John Smith. He says that in 1947 they dropped him into hell itself in the middle of the ocean. After this, he came out a new man and fled across the country. He found him, and so he took his life in his form. This gave him a job that he can never leave, the US presidency. He was Truman for a while, but eventually he had to take the form of the new winner. After some time, he met JFK, who found out about his true form and took him into his care. JFK helped him. However, the bad people that Smith was hiding from figured out that he'd taken the form of two winners, and assumed that JFK was another form he'd taken. Of course, this led to the assassination of JFK. He then takes the form of Nixon, and during this time they discover the hole in the ocean. He decided to send people to open it, and this is what caused his impeachment. Ford decided to help him after hearing his story, but eventually he couldn't help him much more. This led to him continuing to take the forms of the winners, however he enjoys it now. He ends it with this quote, "I am the president's, after all." Well, that was a lot. We now know exactly why Eisenhower was viewed as a mutant in episode 1. We also know why JFK was pictured with a mutant, and who exactly has been talking about JFK being taken away from them. It's more than likely that this man could have been a test subject or one of the first people that they tested on by luring them into the gate, which is why he's avoided detection and remains the president's. We also know that Mr. Hartwin has the same ability, taking baby Jesus' body in order to eventually spread the word about himself. This means that Mr. Hartwin is more than likely a mutant, or something similar to that. This also means that Hartwin isn't immortal in a physical sense, but can perceivedly hop from body to body forever. This explains a little more why Hartwin Labs are protecting human innocence as well, because they're the cause of many of the things that people are concerned or theorize about. Let's see what happens in episode 7. Episode 7 is called Beyond. It opens up with a tribute to Mr. Hartwin, claiming that he only lived from 1894 to 1981, making him only 87 years old as opposed to his perceived age of thousands of years. They continue to speak about Mr. Hartwin. A great man with great dreams. Eugene Hartwin will be missed. His face briefly distorts as it says, "His body has perished but his soul remains," before it shows a colored image of Hartwin in front of the Hartwin Labs logo with the text, "Rest in peace, Eugene K. Hartwin." The scene changes to recorded audio between JFK and Eugene Hartwin on November 21st, 1963, which just happens to be the day before his assassination. JFK and Hartwin seem to be arguing, with JFK denying that he's one of Hartwin's experiments, and Hartwin telling him that he has existed for longer than time and knows when a liar is lying. The audio then cuts off. Next is a Hartwin Inc. guide on hollows. Hollows are organisms that live within hollow earth and have no boundaries to their capabilities whatsoever. It then goes into 2 hollow occurrences during the presidency of Nixon. The first is from 1972 and is known as him. We've seen him before, and according to this video, he's a flare type, a hollow that can exist in the physical world, but more commonly exists in the subconscious of the mind. Him can appear in both physical and psychological states, making him rare. Flares only want to see their victims suffer, but have no actual purpose as to why. This explains what him was saying earlier. We then see a picture of a little girl that distorts before the text, "He took her beyond," appears on the screen. The top half of JFK's face from episode 5 briefly appears right after. It then shows an image of Mr. Hartwin smiling while it plays audio of him saying that he will exist forever. The final image is what seems to be a censored picture of some type of lab experiment. With a little digging, you'll find out that this isn't actually where this episode ends. There's actually an unlisted 30-second clip that goes along with this episode titled Birth of Baby Jesus. The clip starts off with the text saying the true birth of Jesus before showing a picture of baby Jesus as he's heard audibly crying while the music plays. An eye slowly moves down before overlaying one of baby Jesus' eyes and fading out. The scene then changes to a screen with text stating, "Cheer, for Jesus Christ has meaning." This clarifies who the man was that was pictured before and that he is in fact a hollow. It also shows that Hartwin does in fact hop from body to body every time he physically passes on. JFK seems to possibly be part hollow and also possibly be involved in the disappearance of that girl. The last secret video simply shows Hartwin taking over baby Jesus' body, nothing too crazy there. On to episode 8. Episode 8 is titled Legacy. It begins with JFK's inauguration before leading into a screen saying, 35th, The Legacy of John F. Kennedy. The documentary starts normally before the narrator says that JFK survived an assassin's bullet and went on to end the Cold War. It then goes into the story of him surviving his assassination attempt. He was hit in the arm and his chest was grazed, but a man told him to get down, allowing him to avoid being hit in the head. This man was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was declared a national hero and was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom by JFK. A week later, Jack Ruby was arrested for the attempt and was given a life sentence. Ruby told investigators that Oswald worked with him, and this caused him to also be arrested. Oswald admitted that he had a change of heart after firing the first 2 shots and decided to warn JFK. He was sentenced to 45 years. Further investigation revealed Oswald and Ruby met with a KGB officer prior to the event, causing increasing tensions between the US and Soviet Union. After getting out of the hospital, JFK proposed Project Safety Cone to the US people. This project would involve creating organisms from scratch that would listen to every command and be used for battle. After JFK won his second term, the Soviet Union threatened the US with nuclear missiles from their Hawaiian bases, causing the Hawaiian nuclear missiles crisis. This led to the first mutants being sent to Hawaii and the crisis ending in 3 days. The 3 mutants that saved the US were called the Gentlemen and were regarded as national heroes. They never made another public appearance after this due to Kennedy stating, "They will only be used as our weaponry and should never be treated like sympathetic living beings." The next segment is titled, How the Soviet Union Collapsed. This segment shows Hollow Earth and labels where the hollow bomb got its energy from. We then see a time lapse that shows the catastrophic damage that the hollow bomb caused to the Soviet Union. Then an image fades in of what seems to be Hartwin with part of his face missing, who says, "Her name is Pearl, my daughter. I love her so much. Everything I've done, it's to find her. The day I find her is the day that I finally rest. I'm so close, yet so far. No matter how many realities I venture, I'll never quit. I'm in agony all for her. I love you, Pearl." Now we finally know what exactly Eugene is searching for, his daughter. To me, that's the most significant plot development in this episode. The rest seems to be from some sort of parallel universe, considering in the current universe Operation Takeback existed, so JFK wouldn't have made it as far as he had in this documentary. It's time for episode 9. The 9th episode is titled Finale. It begins by stating that on December 22nd, 1964, a portion of US Congress and JFK approved of sending a new type of nuclear bomb after approving a declaration of war against the Soviet Union. This bomb of course disintegrated half the country as we saw previously. This event would be known as the Great Parish of 1964. The US felt bad and sent troops to help the Soviets as the world began to broadcast the crater. They wanted answers from those responsible. The Soviets wanted to send nukes back but didn't out of fear. Several congresspeople who approved of the bomb were arrested following an investigation. This caused JFK to be impeached. We then see a distorted image of Kennedy as he states, "My death is inevitable, but I kind of like my new life. I'm letting them experience true joy, before repeating, "The afterlife is beautiful," multiple times. It then states that Lyndon B. Johnson took control after JFK's impeachment. There was a massive riot from the former president and his supporters following this in support of Kennedy. We then begin to see images of the riots. They're relatively normal until we see a censored image, apparently that of JFK's
hanging body.
It then states that JFK decided to take his own life due to his beliefs in Christianity. The Hartwin Inc. logo then shows up and states that the tape we've seen is from an alternate reality, which shows that people are now able to grasp items from alternate realities and bring them back. However, in order for them to do so, they have to enter the gate in the ocean, which is guarded by water-based mutants 24/7 to prevent unwanted visitors from entering. They go on to explain that there are millions of realities in Hollow Earth just like our own. We then get a Smile Entertainment logo before a video begins. It starts off with the narrator explaining that humans evolved from their ape-like ancestors and that you shouldn't question that. They continue by saying that you shouldn't doubt anything or attempt to prove it for yourself as an image of Hartwin fades in. The next portion is of a man speaking in reverse. However, if you play the reversed audio, he says,
"My daughter was Virgin Mary. I felt it. Who knew killing myself as Jesus would make it justifiable for Christians in that world to do the exact same?"
It then shows monkeys walking towards a hole before a man, or hollow I guess, floats out of it. Fungus growing out of his face and body. He says, "I'm the reason why you're here. I gave them a consciousness. Humanity has been created once more." He then leaves, and right afterward the primates begin to evolve. During this process, it says, "The true evolution of man." It then switches to a scene that says, 100+ billion people have lived. What happens after death? The answer is simple. It then shows a transparent image of a figure and says, "This is your soul after death." The soul lowers into the hole from earlier, what seems like an entrance to Hollow Earth, and states that after death you become a monster. There is no heaven or hell. Bad and good just depend on your life. That same face that slid up twice before now fully reveals itself and says, "I am John F. Kennedy. I am a hollow now. I am all of them. I am every single one. I am showing them beauty. I am showing them peace. I am him." The next scene shows Eugene Hartwin as he sends a message to his daughter Pearl. He says that ever since the day they took her and threw her into that gate, he's been looking for her. Through millions of deaths, the creation of the company, and even the creation of life itself, he's always been looking for her. During this time, we see images of different urban legends on the screen. He then continues to tell her that she needs to find all the tapes and that no matter how many years it takes, they'll get their revenge. You see Hartwin flash into pictures of popular figures. It then shows a picture of Pearl, the girl that we saw earlier. It ends off with a credit sequence before showing a final string of text. When translating it, it says, "The story is far from over. Many questions remained unanswered or unsolved. We live in a world we've come to accept to be normal, but we know fairly little about what really happens behind the scenes. The archives will return. The 9 videos are barely the tip of the iceberg. Thank you. They are responsible for everything." That was a lot, but as it stated, it's not over yet. Even so, we can analyze what we have so far. When watching through the series again, you'll notice the prominence of certain figures throughout the story, namely JFK and Hartwin. JFK is clearly not as he appears, which to me means that he's probably a hollow or some type of hollow variation, as I've said before. He confirms this in the finale episode. This means that it could be possible that he's the one involved in a lot of the disappearances referenced in the series so far. If I had to theorize, I would guess that the children that are getting kidnapped are related to Hartwin or Hartwin Labs to some capacity. The purpose could either be to see what effects hollow energy would have on children, or possibly something completely different that I can't even theorize right now. When it comes to the mutants, I don't believe that they're just for war. If I had to guess, I would say that it's likely Hartwin is attempting to create a specific type of creature, or possibly just a force to protect the Earth from hollows. I'm not fully sure. It's possible that because of something Hartwin did a long time ago, JFK, or what appears to be JFK, took Pearl to Hollow Earth, or possibly out of Hollow Earth to another parallel dimension, which would make sense considering they said there are millions of parallel dimensions in existence. As far as the origins of humanity and that fungus guy, I have absolutely no clue. He's likely a hollow, but there's not much I can theorize there. All I can say is that he has nothing to do with Hartwin, as I asked the creator this question specifically. If you guys have any theories, I'd love to hear them in the comments. With all of that being said, thank you for watching. Please go check out the Hartwin Archives and subscribe to TheMr. All of their links will be below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and sub with notifications on, and follow my Twitter below. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.